Am I right on that first?
That's correct. The new revenue source that we are talking about, the ordinance for the TUF, when it's adopted, it's going to take some time to implement and finance, and then you have to start collecting the fee also.
Okay.
So we're a year out from fully collecting.
Is there any, with the paving maintenance, will there be any overlays included this year then in the upcoming budget?
Yeah, we're going to be looking at overlaying Fifth Street. We're doing a sewer project on Fifth Street, and by the time you get done with the main line and the laterals, you've diced it up quite a bit. So we'll be reconditioning the Fifth Street pavement.
Okay, and that is basically the only one that's going to be overlaid then? The rest
Correct.
are just going to be patching and kind of
You
doing
got
what
it.
we can.
You do
for
what we
another year.
can. You got it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Jay. Related to the construction of the new pool, Hayworth and on Sitka, the utility work that is out in the streets, the patching is leaving those streets quite rough. Are they going to come back in and do a retro on that, or what?
Yeah, typically during construction, they'll put all the utilities in out in the street, and they use cold mix, which is not a hot asphalt product, just to put a temporary patch down. They'll take that out once all the street cuts are done and a saw cut wider, and then put in a hot mix patch and then seal the edges with emulsion. So you're probably looking at a temporary repair right now that will get fixed, when they're done out there in the street.
When will they be done in the street?
Oh, 2-3 years from now.
Thank you.
I can check. Well, I'll get back to you.
Okay. Any other questions, Councilor Johnson?
I was headed out of town, I think a couple weeks ago, and over there doing that work across from the Shell station and grocery outlet, and there was a trench that they cut across, and I thought I was about going to catch some air, and I wrote you an email, and it was fixed, so I don't know if you did anything, but good job.
Except it's now eroding. That's the one there in front of Mike's place, 808? Yeah, that's another one of those that needs that hot mix.
Okay, I'll have our construction people go out and look at these temporary patches tomorrow.
Thank you. Any others for Jay? Mr. Rux?
Thank you, Mayor. Doug Rux, Community Development Director. So, need to start off with a piece of good news as our new associate planner started today, Cheryl Keynes. So she spent a long day in orientation, a little big-eyed when I said, here's all this stuff you need to read. So I'm starting to clean out my office one paper at a time. In the building division, since July 1st through the end of February, we've done 4,092 inspections for the 4 communities that we provide service, so Newberg, Dundee, Lafayette, and Dayton. So we're doing about 25 to 30 inspections a day, so a little over 400 a month. Single family.
May I interrupt?
Yes.
With the new person coming on board, how much longer are we going to contract with the COG?
That contract ended last
Thank
Friday.
you.
So we actually took Cheryl over today. We spent a couple hours meeting with the city administrator in Dundee, getting that orientation done. Got the list of priorities from them and what they have for what we provide for contractual services. So we're off and running.
Thank you. Continue.
Single family permits. So from July 1st through March 31st, we've received so far 82. So we're well above where we were at last year. We have probably 30 of those permits, though, still sitting in a drawer waiting for the developers to come pull the permits. So, but we'll keep pushing forward. Historic Commission. So we applied for a grant to the State Historic Preservation Office for funds to do a inventory and survey work on the Cameo Theater. We received an email that we received that grant, so we're working through the paperwork. The Newberg Downtown Coalition, in coordination with chapters, has applied for a grant through the state parks for new programs related to Main Street to look at doing refurbishing of the exterior of that building, so pulling off the fake false fronts and taking it back to its original. So we'll wait to hear. We provided information to NDC for that. Historic Commission approved the Recipe restaurant remodel, as well as the Cultural Center patio. The Affordable Housing Commission, we're out for the solicitation on the Manufactured Home Repair Maintenance Program. That's our local program. And the task force met twice in the last couple of weeks. We also got the grant contracts for our large $400,000 grant from Business Oregon. That paperwork is out at the Housing Authority, and then some additional compilation material, and it's going back to Business Oregon, so we're moving forward with that. There will be other documents that will come forward to you for sub-grants and so forth to the Housing Authority. Economic development side of the world, the implementation group on the strategy has met twice since our last report. Portland Community College toured Yamhill County. So they were at George Fox University, they were at the Chehalis Valley Accelerator, and then out to the museum in McMinnville, and then over to Yamhill Carlton, and then out to Willamina. So they got 6 of them got a good tour of what's going on the innovation side of the world in Yamhill County. Our TLT ad hoc committee has met a couple times. They reviewed the small grants, made recommendations to you, which you've already approved. We're working through all of those grant documents. The subcommittee has also met, and they're working on marketing and branding. In the world of planning, we have 2 annexations in Dutchman Ridge and Veritas North Valley Church. So those are in review process. Our UGB work, Tasks 2 and 3, which is our buildable lands inventory and study area, that report was submitted last week. We're now going to be working on Task 4, which are action plan and implementation plan. So we'll give you a presentation on the buildable lands inventory and study area in a couple of meetings. The development code, we pushed back our land division regs just because we were short-staffed, and so we'll get that rescheduled back in front of the Planning Commission, and we're continuing work on the residential parking regulations. Subdivision-wise, Oregon Clinic, so we issued that decision. Appeal period will end in a couple of days. We've got a modification in for Gracie's Landing on one of the conditions for that project. We've got a couple of partitions that are in for review, one on College Street and one on 8th. Design reviews. So Cultural Center patio, the Planning Commission approved that. Newberg Dodge is in review. An equipment storage yard out at the airport's in review. GFU's new activity center is in review. GFU's new indoor tennis courts has been submitted, so we'll start the review on that. Panda Express submitted their design review, so we're starting to look at that. And Grace Baptist Church on 2nd Street has an application in for an expansion as well. CUPs, we got 2 cell towers, so the Planning Commission approved one on Illinois. The Planning Commission will be looking at another one on the 13th of April off of Edgewood, so it'll be a faux steeple on top of a church. And then we got some miscellaneous things. We're continuing the work on Crestview Drive with Regional Solutions, working with Graymore. Jay had mentioned the Water Master Plan. That's going to the Planning Commission on April 13th. Doing coordination with engineering on Villa Road, the transportation SDCs, the wastewater master plan. Joe and I met with the Dales on Sportsman's Air Park. And the Riverfront Master Plan is going through ODOT's RFP process. And as the mayor indicated earlier, the City for All Ages, we've been notified that we've been accepted into that program. Unfortunately, as the mayor announced earlier, that'll have to be delayed, so we'll probably bring that back on May 15th. SDC waivers, we're still waiting to get the signed documents back from CPRD on those SDC waivers. I'll reach out again to them. And the last one is the Hoover Minthorn House, and you have that on your calendar later this evening.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Rux? Councilor Johnson?
You said something that perked my ears up about residential parking regulations, and I know how those can go horribly wrong really fast, and I was just curious.
Of a previous subdivision application that was approved by the Planning Commission, and it was addressing the issue of cul-de-sac streets and on-street parking. So they've asked us to do some evaluation and research and come back and look at what we might be able to do to ensure that when we get cul-de-sac streets or eyebrow cul-de-sacs and so forth, that there's sufficient parking for residents and their guests when they come to a particular home. So we had one work session with the Planning Commission. They had a lot of questions. They asked us to do some research on some other things, and so we'll be coming back to them in May with some additional information. This is not about a permit parking system. This is looking at our regulations and how we might be able to modify them for parking requirements.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much. Thank you, staff. We appreciate the input this evening from all of you. Look forward to the next report. And I think on behalf of the council, we're going to say, keep up the good work. With that, we'll move to, I'm going to open it up for council business. And I think since we have a few minutes, Councilor Essen, will your report be about in the length of time between now and when we want to begin our business session? Well,
Okay, I'm going to talk to us about our Yamhill County Water Task Force.
you didn't answer my question. Between now and,
Oh, yeah.
okay, thank you.
It's going to be a short presentation, actually.
Would help. I'm surprised you didn't get me on that. But,
I'll leave it up to Dave. He's a good one.
yeah, he knows he can't hear anything. Yes, we had a water task force meeting, and we had a report from Joe Plon, Water Master report. He represents our district and 4.5 other counties. He was talking about a report on the drought conditions. Currently, there are no areas in Oregon that is in a drought condition, which is good news. But what they found out is they're short of storage up in our area, especially on the Yamhill River. So even when we don't have a drought, they'll still need a couple of rains to make it through this summer. And the way they did it in 2015 was they had a farmer who wasn't using his land, and 2 cities were able to be able to have water because the farmer didn't take his. So that they're doing a study, a 3-year study, feasibility study, to determine whether modifications in the story allocations of the Willamette Valley Reservoir would be better serve the basin. And a handout was given with the major milestones for the study. 2017 is the goal to develop the preferred plan. And what they're doing on that study is looking at the demands for water, for wildlife, farms, cities, and those kinds of things. One of the things they're finding out is what hurts is not having enough reservoirs. So that's one of the things. Then they had a legislative update, talked about the grant program, and we have a grant in, as I think you heard tonight. They will be coming out, I asked at the meeting that they come out with some information as to what they would like, because it's there's going to be hearings before the state legislature, and they're asking each agency to put in a letter of support. That'll probably come to Joe, I guess. But when they do, it'll come in a format that we can modify it to meet our needs. And the reason for that is what they're looking at is refunding the 3 areas that are already included. And the one that we're most concerned about is being able to update our water lines. And Representative Helms is scheduling water committee meetings beginning in April. And then there were handouts. I sent you all this information. This is a report. And You may not have had a chance to read it because it just probably came today, and some of the handouts are in front of you, as a matter of fact. But basically, I'm trying to tell you what's in these handouts so that you can maybe not read through it completely, but they're basically looking at getting more money in this year's governor's budget. That's what they propose. The governor's budget is what they look at to start off with. And they want to protect groundwater resources, protect the public and water supplies through dam safety inspections, and they're looking to figure out a way to meet in the budget future water needs, and they're doing studies that to make sure that we have enough water for fish, farmers, and public agencies. And that's basically what was brought up at the meeting, and they are continuing on their Willamette Basin Review Study, and in your handouts, there's a map that shows what that basin includes.
Which basin?
The Willamette Basin Project, and they list in that map all the areas. That's our area, so that's why it's important. We're included in it. But it also shows all of the different reservoirs that are available. And if you look up in our area where the Yamhill River is, there is no basin, there is no reservoirs. So that might be something that we're concerned about at some point, although it doesn't necessarily affect us because it mostly affects other cities within our area. But that's interesting information that we are very low on reservoirs. Also, and that pretty much covers that, except that I did talk to Rick Olson at the meeting. Rick was there, and on our transit, bus transit program, he's doing a very extensive meetings, and I'm going to be included in those meetings, but he's really getting on studying what our real needs are for the county, and so there's a lot of work to do. As you probably know, Joe was able to get somebody from our staff to sit on the basically the transit committee that's going to be studying what our needs are. But I also recommended somebody from, well, the mayor gave me a whole bunch of names, but she was particularly interested in talking to somebody from the senior center, and also, which I contacted, she was going to do it, but she hasn't followed through on it. So I'll continue working to make sure she gets all the names in. And the other area was she wanted somebody from our chamber. So that's who's going to be on that planning committee for transit, and it's coming up. So that's in addition to the water committee meeting. And that's the report. Any questions?
Councilor Essen, you mentioned in your water report, our interest is in what here in Newberg? Our water line?
Here, let me look at the actual. There's a water grant, water project grant and loans program, and Jay, you know what you applied for there on the, and I believe you said it was you just applied for $250,000. That particular grant is coming up for more funding.
That is correct. I'm working on the application, which is due later this week. We had a pre-application conference with the Water Resource Department, and our grant application is asking for $250,000. It'll be about a $750,000 project in that range.
For
The water line extension that I spoke of in my staff report, from Highway 240 across the 240 bridge.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
And if that's SB 839, there's about $5 million, give or take, left in that grant for this year. but they're coming up for refunding because there's no money for the place-based planning or the feasibility studies. Well, that's about $1 million, which is not a lot of money for the entire state, so they need to get that refunded.
Any questions or comments for Councilor Essen? Thank you. Appreciate it very much. I think we're going to be in recess. We're going to, unless there's something further to come before the work session, we will actually adjourn the work session. None appearing. The work session is adjourned. We will reconvene at approximately 7 p.m. this evening in our business session.
Well, I gave that one stuff.
But it's still. No, I was he and he came with he and I, yeah, he's seen the hotel also.
We're not going. See, that would be I mean, it's
So you didn't get out and go see it? I meant to set it up for my birthday, but I think so they don't.
so we got everything else.
Everybody goes. Last Joseph was a big place.
You've been to a lot of things. Just in that revenge business and the bronze boundaries.
You survived. Yeah. Need a new inhaler before I go next week. It's not just because there's a fossil like the W, and it bothers me. Well, it's
Counselors, take your chairs, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call to order the Newberg City Council business session for April 3rd, 2017. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Mayor, all present with the exception of Councilor Denise Bacon, who has an excused absence.
Thank you. Would you rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to advise you of one change on the agenda this evening. Under the item 4 for presentations, we will not have a presentation tonight on the City for All Ages due to death in the family of one of the presenters, as it will come up later in May. Did I understand? That will be done in May. So that's the only change on the agenda that we have tonight. We have a number of proclamations, and this is the part that I really rather enjoy. We have proclamations dealing with the Rotary Peace Pole. We have the Library Week proclamation. We have proclamations on national public safety, and we have an Arbor Week proclamation. And I'm going to invite the representatives from the Rotary. If you have your display that you would like, if you would get that, I'm prepared to introduce the proclamation for that.
This is one of 51.
We'll get to that shortly. Thank you for displaying this. We have a proclamation, and this is a proclamation recognizing and supporting the placing of peace poles throughout Newberg community as a way to bring together people of all faiths, backgrounds, and cultures to embrace the oneness of our planetary family. And this is a sample of those peace poles that will be placed throughout the city. Whereas in 2012, the city of Newberg adopted a proclamation declaring Newberg as a Rotary Peace community to promote peace, understanding, and goodwill between our residents and in communities around the world, and installed peace poles at Memorial Park and Francis Square. And whereas in 2017, the city of Newberg adopted a proclamation declaring the support for, quote, I am glad you're my neighbor inclusion campaign, and a resolution declaring the city of Newberg as an inclusive city. And whereas these previous actions of the city of Newberg promote peace and understanding among our residents and the world. And whereas the Newberg Noon and the Early Birds Rotary Clubs are participating in a project to demonstrate this dedication to peace by placing over 50 peace poles throughout the community in 2017. And whereas on January 17, 2017, the City Council authorized the placing of 6 peace poles at various city facilities. And whereas These peace poles are each a monument that displays the message, "May peace prevail on earth," in English on one side, and in a number of world languages on the remaining three sides, such as Spanish, Japanese, German, Arabic, Hebrew, Somali, and others share the message with all. And whereas peace poles are intended to inspire unity among people of all cultures, ethnicities, and backgrounds, and now therefore it is proclaimed by myself and the City Council on behalf of the citizens of the City of Newberg that we continue to support the Rotary Peace Pole Project and encourage citizens of Newberg to attend the simultaneous dedication of the poles throughout the community on Friday, April 14, 2017, at 11 a.m. as they see the poles to remember the message, "May peace prevail on earth," in all its meanings, from personal interactions to community relations to a world without war. In witness thereof, I have set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Newberg to be fixed this third day of April, 2017. This I present to a representative of the Rotary, you, the council, and you, our audience. These is an example of the poles that will be installed throughout the city. Mr. Grissom, thank you for your work. We appreciate it, and your proclamation. Thank you. Mr. Caruso, did you have something you wanted to say to the group?
I think you covered everything. I'd just like to say thank you to the city council for approving this and the mayor and helping make Rotary a truly peace city.
And we thank you for your efforts. An evening of proclamations. We have a proclamation recognizing April 9 through 15 as National Library Week. And I believe we have representatives of our library board and we have representatives of our library staff with us this evening. This proclamation recognizing April 4 through 15, 2017, the National Library Week. Whereas libraries are not just what we have for people, but what we do for and with people. And whereas libraries have long served as trusted and treasured institutions, and library workers and librarians fuel efforts to better their communities. And whereas libraries are evolving in order to serve their communities and to continue to provide access to all who seek information, particularly in view of the changing information landscape and the skills needed to thrive in our digital world. And whereas libraries and librarians open up a world of possibilities through innovative STEAM, or STEM, as you wish, programming, job-seeking resources, and the power of reading. Whereas libraries and librarians are looking beyond their traditional roles and providing more opportunity for community engagement and delivering new services that connect closely with patrons' needs. And whereas libraries support democracy and affect social change through their commitment to provide equitable access to information for all library users, regardless of race, color, national origin, immigration or refugee status, religion, sex, mental or emotional or physical ability, age or economic status. And whereas libraries, librarians, library workers, and supporters across America are celebrating National Library Week. Now therefore it is proclaimed by myself and the City Council and on behalf of the citizens of the City of Newberg, Oregon, that April 9 through 15, 2017 is National Library Week, and we encourage the citizens of Newberg to visit and explore Newberg Public Library and find out what's new at your library, because you and our experts at the libraries transform. In witness thereof, I have set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Newberg to be affixed. Congratulations to all of you. It is a time to be recognized on this National Library Week. want to do this one? The city's public safety telecommunication workers, do we have any present this evening? Is Mary with us this evening? Oh, she's not. All right, well, thank you for coming. I have another proclamation, and this is very important to all of us in the city as well as we of the city. A proclamation declaring the week of April 9 through 15, 2017 is National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, and emergency medical services. And whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, paramedics is critical to the protection of life and the preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the Newberg Dundee Communications Center. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link for our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them with information, and ensuring their safety. And whereas public safety telecommunicators for the Newberg Dundee Communications Center have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, the suppression of fires, and the treatment of patients. And whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job this past year. Now, therefore, we proclaim the week of April 9 through 15, 2017 to be the National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in Newberg in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and citizens safe. In witness thereof, I have set my hand in the seal of the city of Newberg, and congratulations and thank you for a very vital service that few people ever really see, but may hear. I have one final proclamation that I want to share with you that we have coming up. And this is a proclamation declaring the week of April 2nd through April 8th, 2017 is Arbor Week. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, it is proclaimed by myself and the City Council of the City of Newberg that the week of April 2 through 8 as Arbor Week in the City of Newberg, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Week to support efforts to protect our trees and our woodlands. In which thereof, I've set my hand on the seal of the city of Newberg to this proclamation. And may I give this to Mr. Harris, our Public Works Director for the city, and the maintainer of our trees. We have concluded our proclamations, and with that, I would move to have the city manager begin his report, please.
Mayor and Council, it's Joe Hannon, your city manager. Mayor, as we go by the proclamation, we have a council member who is an arborist and will take advantage of the council's proclamation and also pass it along to CPRD when we see them this weekend. So, the last 2 weeks since last council has pretty much been just budget. So that means meeting with individual departments, taking back the information to the finance staff, and then returning back to the departments. And this is all anticipation of getting you and the budget committee a draft budget for next year within the next 30 days. So there's more to come, including this evening on the council priorities that will take where your priorities are and build it into the budget. In addition to that, participated with Mountain View Middle School. It's a STAR Design program, and this is where the middle schoolers as entrepreneurs made presentations within their groups, and they were judged, and then they made a presentation to the mayor, to Doug Rux, myself, and two of the planning commissioners, and Ron Wolf and Alan Edwards. And they were really, they were very insightful and helpful, even as we do economic development. Much as you would expect, there were requests to put in a bowling alley in town, and why don't we have pinballs and gaming shops? But and so those are good ideas that we actually pass along to some other businesses. And it really mirrors also a lot of what we've heard out of students from George Fox, which we've had similar kind of programs. So we'll take those ideas and give it to existing businesses, and maybe out of that comes the next Steve Jobs of Newberg. But it's a really outstanding program of helping the students. And Doug Rux from our staff, year in, year out, has been able to work with the schools to make these presentations. So we're very pleased with that. We also attended a VFW pancake breakfast on Saturday, which was good for the pancake breakfast, and it was a good response from the community. But it was also an opportunity for the city to respond to a proposal for banners honoring veterans on one of 3 different segments of the city. So we've been working on that for some time. It's the VFW group has come to the mayor with it, and we think we've found now 3 locations where we can move forward with that. So shortly we'll have something back in front of you. Also attended the Downtown Coalition Board directors, and you heard Doug mention about the Economic Development Working Group. That's just going through implementation of all of the action steps that were within that plan. And I know that group is just nearing on 1 year anniversary, so they'll come back with a formal presentation with the to council. And then the other one was just a brief meeting to follow up with the Dales related to Sportsman Park. And if you remember, this is an idea or a proposal to access an FAA program that cities or counties or special districts can apply for a grant to purchase development rights for like a general aviation airport. And the whole goal of that is that if this money comes in and the rights to develop the property, not the title to it, but the rights secure the airport so it'll be here for, in perpetuity. So we're working on that, and that'll come back to council shortly. And Mr. Mayor, I'm open for any questions.
Any questions or comments from the city manager at this time? None appearing? I appreciate that. With that, then, let's have you move into the area presentations, Mr. City Manager, and we'll have a review of the council priorities.
So, Mayor and Council, Joe Hannon again. This can be a real extended conversation tonight, or it can be as quick as you want it to be. If you remember, a little over a month ago, the council met to look at the priorities that had been set for the last year. And this priority process, both last year and this year, is typically a 2-year process. It can easily be 3 to 5. But it sets what your priorities are for the council that then drives the budget. And so we build the budget around what your priorities are. And one of the handouts are, and I'll go through these kind of quickly because I think that some of it might be a little too intense for everybody in the room. There's a lot of information. And so if you ever want to see it, it's on our website. It just says council priorities, and it talks about where the city is going on it. But from last year, you had a series of a half a dozen council priorities. And the first recommendations we start with this is for that to continue on and to be our priority for the next 2 years until we finish it. What you asked at the meeting and during that council priority session, you set up some new ideas about what might be added to this year for council priorities. So the attachment, and I'll read some of these, are what we have tonight, and then an attempt to put dollars next to some of those priorities. So I'll run through them very quickly, and then the staff has continued to stay here so they can answer questions. And these are not in a particular order of priorities as they came, even though you did put some sticky notes, so we have a consensus over a number of the items to come forward. The first one is just the implementing plans for repairing our roads. Been a lot on the news, in the papers. We have a study that was completed this year that's been widely distributed about the conditions of our roads and the fact that we need to do something to preserve them and for some to completely rebuild it. We have 65 miles of paved roads in the town, and we have a number of dirt roads. And so what has been discussed over the last 6 months is first identifying what the cost of fixing our roads and getting them back up. And we have a $14.5 million of backlog in street projects. And this is to get them into a condition where we can do normal maintenance of them and preserve this asset that we have. There have been at least 3 different ways of funding that money. The one is on your agenda next week, and this is returning next week, 2 weeks from tonight, returning at the council meeting of a thing referred to as a transportation utility fee. And this would be money that can go to fund at least 1/3 of the annual need, which is identified at $2.5 million. And that transportation utility fee, which has come from a recommendation of a citizen group on pavement managing, would identify approximately between 1.1 and 1.3 millions per year. And the utility fee would end up on from single-family residents up through businesses, profit and non-profit, of contributing for that 1.3 million. And there's a lot of detail that has been in the papers, but it's also on the website, and you're getting the ordinance that would put that in place as the second reading 2 weeks from tonight. That's one portion of it. There's also discussion that has been delayed, and that's about should another part of the funding to get this 2.5 million be a gas tax. I think all of us are very aware that no one wants to pay any more taxes, even for something as important as streets. And in the last general election, 9 out of the 10 cities that had a gas tax proposal went down. So that's been put on hold to see, you know, maybe put in place or ideally put in place the transportation utility fee, using that money against the project priorities, and then we'll see where we are with additional funding. So that was one that was on the priorities, and it's been talked about before, and this puts a little more specifics to the proposal. The other one is an offshoot of that, and that's to repair and replace sidewalks. And the city actually has a pedestrian and a trail master plan that's almost 10 years old now, and it identifies critical corridors within the city of how people can walk from one place to the other in the city. And so as a priority, it's how does that fit into the next area of projects through the year. The good news is that in the preliminary budget that we have and following up on discussion that you've already had, we anticipate with the public works projects that are going to go in of putting in 4.5 miles of new sidewalks in town. So that's huge, and those are already related to other kinds of public projects that include the Villa Road that you had an update tonight, a short piece there by George Fox that's also later on your agenda tonight as part of a settlement of a suit. College of 4,500 linear feet of improvement that's scheduled, and then Fifth Street that we're talking about that is a sewer and stormwater too, or just sewer? A sewer lateral project where we're tearing up the roads to put in these new laterals. But while we're doing that, then we'll put new surface on the roads, which fits to the road project, but also improve sidewalks in the area. So we have the most, well, I shouldn't say the most recent. We have the 2007 estimated cost of the other projects. The numbers are very large and kind of scary when we see all the sidewalks. But the good news is we have some projects that are already going on in this year. A proposal being the budget as a proposal is UGB expansion. This is an issue that we've seen quite a bit in the last 5 years, and this is we have shortage of certain uses in town, both commercial, residential, and industrial, and this is to take it to follow up with what Doug and Community Development is doing next year. Am I going too slow?
No.
Okay. So, because I know there's a lot on here.
This has nothing to do with what you're doing.
Okay, so there's some costs that are identified in the budget to go to the next step with the both the inventory of lands we have and to bringing us in outside help to go through a UGB expansion. We also, the other priority that's there for you to consider is about creating affordable housing options. And again, much of this is what you've heard before, and with the Citizens Committee that's working down, one that's not even our committee, but it's a community-wide committee on affordable housing. They're looking at a large number of different options of funding and housing types, and so there's no fiscal impact at this point other than looking to you to say, do we continue to use the resources like Doug Rucks and other community development staff continuing on with affordable housing? There's also development of a riverfront plan. So this is now new as a priority, even though it's been talked about for a long time. And this is, again, is this where we want to put our effort, and how does it sit as a priority for the city? This is planning for and redeveloping the waterfront, over 400 acres, probably the wrong number, 450 acres along the waterfront, planning for that. It updates a previous waterfront plan that we have that got bifurcated by the new bypass. But some things have changed, so it's back with the help of a grant from the state. The biggest one is the closure of the mill. So West Rock would now be included in this, and include all of the area basically that goes from the eastern edge of West Rock to the landfill, the water to 9th Street. And so at within 3 meetings from now, the mayor will have the Citizens Committee will again use the grant after it's gone out for an RFP from the state and begin to plan for the waterfront. The other one is implementing emergency preparedness program. We've talked a lot about it. We have an initiative going on right now with the faith-based community, and this has a number of steps and some dollars put next to it, and so it's placing it here for you to consider and see where it sits in your priority. Likewise, the downtown improvement plan. In the last 2 years, council had interest in taking all of these master plans that we had that have all kinds of actionable steps in it and say, let's not do a plan and put it on a shelf. Let's make sure that they're all integrated, that they're updated, and we're actually doing something with it. Well, as you heard in the update from community development, Doug saying, we're there doing a lot of these plans. They've now been compared to each other. There's actionable steps, and a big part of it is the downtown improvement plan, while there's also a riverfront plan. And many of these have opportunities for citizens to be involved. Most of them, if not all, have had a citizens committee that helped develop the plan to get it to the point where you've looked at it. And there are a number of depending on which priority and where we go with the plan, and they're detailed in tonight's agenda. Again, some pretty big numbers, but one of the other ones that shows up as a sub-priority this, but will be presented in the budget if you want to go there, is a feasibility to consider an urban renewal district in the city. And right now, there's not an identifiable source of money to make to make the improvements in the downtown plan. One that has been suggested in the downtown improvement plan and has been discussed in a work session here is if we create an urban renewal district, that can provide the funding that just comes from the area that's being redeveloped as opposed from all residents town to make some of the things happen in the plans. There's also about downtown, the 99 issues that have been here for a while in terms of walkability and just the look of the streets, but now with the opening of the bypass this year, of some recommendations, suggestions of where do we go next and where do we put our effort. So much of this is about, you can count the staff and the community development on one hand, and there's more priorities that are on these lists than we have staff there. So it's a presentation back to you to help us understand where you want to go. IT, you just heard it tonight about all the attacks and things that have come on our system. Well, IT is also part of the proposal coming forward in the budget. This one is a very specific one about implementing SharePoint. There's a little more description of that with a dollar tag to that. Likewise, there's discussion about a citywide trail system. We have a trail and pedestrian plan. There are costs that are detailed in the report tonight, and it's about prioritizing them. I wish that we had enough money to do all of these projects. So it's more of a list and a blueprint and us trying to find dollars. And it also is a prelude to, we're working now with the schedule with the Park and Recreation District and the council to meet in a study session to both talk about the trail discussion in this report, but also about an initiative that CPRD is spearheading for a countywide trail system. The other one, you heard discussion with Councilmember Essen tonight about transit system. We have, in the last year, and it's the first year in several years, put $17,000 for a transit system. Well, the transit system cost a great deal more than the $17,000 that we contribute an equal amount from McMinnville. It's in the hundreds of thousands to just operate. So this is a a request or a report on some of the dollars, some of the things that are being considered of where do you want staff and the council moving down on that. We also have a problem, or we have a challenge with our retirement system for our employees. We have two retirement systems. We have a Newberg employee retirement system, and we have the state PERS. Both of them have challenges, large dollar amounts, and they're detailed in there. And then a great deal what we heard last week, and it's been out in the paper also, is where the city goes with the TVF&R of consideration of annexation. There's a time frame in there, some decisions between council, a lot about the cost both to the community, to individual taxpayers, and how that fits on the budget. A holdover from the last group was improving communication with the public, and there's a number of things that the city has already done. Merritt, there's a lot here, and I know you have a lot of other items on the agenda. We can talk about these tonight. You can read them, ask any questions that we can try to gather more information. I realize it's like drinking out of a fire hose because it's following up to some of the items that you had. But you have your staff that's here tonight also, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions or comments for the city manager? Councilor Essen, Councilor McKinney, in that order.
Yes, Joe, great job. I wanted to thank you for the effort that you put into this. This is something we didn't do last year. And one of the things I noticed about our meeting is it seemed like we had a lot of more things to talk about. And at the end of that, however, I think we've given you plenty to do at this time. And if there's, perhaps maybe there should be some sort of follow-up meeting where we come up with specifics as to, you've got this pretty well laid out. A lot of the funding is coming from grants, and I just want to thank you and staff, because I'm noticing all the grant monies that are coming in, and they just don't show up. There's a lot of work involved in that. But how do you see this going forward, I guess is my question.
So, Mayor and Council, I feel guilty. I see a lot of people out here, and this is a pretty detailed discussion. I think that we would all benefit by just another brief session of coming together where you can have another study session. Part of what was missing the last time, and we got that, was that we had, priorities come back and you didn't know what the costs were. And I know that was frustrating. I think there's a value in us coming together for another 3-4 hour session and saying, okay, here's some new numbers, and how does that translate into the budget? Other than if there's items that really you prefer not to be on here or highest priority, if we can get that kind of feedback, we'll make sure that the draft budget reflects that.
Councilor McKinney?
I'm glad to hear your remarks about priorities, because there's a lot of information in here. But there's a lot of things that cannot be done immediately, but we need to definitely set the priorities to accomplish what we can first things first here. I have a question for Doug Rux. Of the 450 acres, how many of them are unannexed at the present time? Half?
Roughly, let's use a rough number of about 150 acres that are not annexed to the city.
So that will play into our methodology as we proceed about this riverfront plan,
Yes.
as well as what happens with the old mill.
The Councilor Doug Rux again. So it's the single largest unannexed property is the West Rock Mill site. Only 8 acres of that property is actually within the city limits. And there are a few other pieces of property on the west side of River Street as well. But some of that is also under West Rock ownership. So as part of this whole planning process, we'll be talking about what infrastructure is needed, which will lead to discussions about annexation of the property in order for it to develop or redevelop.
So tell me if I'm wrong. At the present time, that annexation could take place at this diet by these councilors and this mayor.
Under the current bills that were passed in the last legislative session, City Council has the authority to approve annexations without a vote as long as it meets certain parameters. There are several bills in the legislative session currently that would repeal the actions that they took in the last session.
Any other questions or comments for the city manager at this time? None going? Then we will move into the area of public comments. I have two people signed up, and this is a section of the agenda that provides an opportunity for our citizens to address the council on matters relevant to the city and regarding items on the consent calendar, but not other specific items on the agenda for council deliberation. I would remind all citizens who have signed up to speak to the council that each will have 5 minutes to address the council, and also any collective comments by an individual under public comments will be limited to 5 minutes. And it is asked that any request for information that the speaker makes be made in writing and presented to our city recorder, who will then forward it to the mayor. The mayor and the council may assign the request to the appropriate staff member or employee for review and response. Staff responses will be reviewed by the mayor and the council before sending to the requester. Responses will be either by email or by UPS. And with that, I'm going to invite Mr. Seppi to come forward, please. Identify, turn on the mic, the silver button on your right, identify yourself, and proceed.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Robert Suppi. I come before you tonight with a matter that potentially has both legal and technical consequences to the city. I'll apologize in advance for the quantity of technical information that I'll be presenting. Unfortunately, this is necessary to make the situation clear. The issues I am raising have to do with the sewerage master plans as published in 2007 and in 2009. I think that these issues are highly relevant, not at least because of the upcoming Crestview Crossing development, as well as the issue of sewage overflow on Springbrook. I've had concerns about the sewer capacity on Springbrook since the overflow occurred a while back. I was recently looking at what the master plan had modeled for that line and found some significant differences between the 2007 and 2009 plans. More specifically, if one looks at the pipe on Springbrook, downstream from where the Fernwood pump station connects, the 2007 plan has it operating at 93% of capacity during peak flows. This is what the plan showed for conditions that existed in 2007. The interesting part is that in the 2009 plan, this capacity is reduced to 67% with no obvious technical reason. The difference appears to be entirely due to the later plan modeling the reduction by over 50% in the flow from the pump station. I did not find any data for the details of the pump station flow, so it is difficult to see why that was changed. I tried to decipher why the peak flow was so dramatically reduced in the 2009 plan. The primary reason for the 2009 revision was to accommodate the impact of the Highway 240 pump station. It was my understanding, which was confirmed within a conversation with the city engineer last week, that the new pump station would have no effect on the Springbrook line to which I've been referring. I then thought I should be able to get the answers from the council agenda and minutes for the meeting at which the 2009 revision was submitted and approved. I looked through the agendas for all of 2009 and the first half of 2010 and didn't find any mention of the plan. When I spoke to the city engineer about this last week, she indicated that she had been unable to find any resolutions regarding the 2009 plan. While neither of us did an absolutely comprehensive search, it appears that the 2009 plan, on which significant decisions have been made, is not, in fact, an adopted document. I don't think that I need to point out to the council just how serious this could be. The data in both plans are listed as having come from the engineering firm Brown and Caldwell. It seems to me that it should be a fairly straightforward process to locate the documentation from that firm from when they generated the new data for the 2009 update. I would expect this documentation would make it very clear why the data changed so significantly between the 2007 and 2009 modeling. While this wouldn't resolve the problem with the 2009 plan possibly not having been adopted, it may at least clarify the technical issues. I believe that these technical issues are very important at the moment, especially when one considers the Crestview Crossing development. It is my understanding that this development is expected to use the part of the Springbrook sewer to which I'm referring tonight. If, as appears to be the case, the current adopted master plan shows that the sewer was at 93% capacity 10 years ago, I think that it would be highly problematic to add this new development to it. I strongly urge the council to take this matter seriously. I would like to suggest 3 tasks that should be undertaken. Number 1, find out what the technical reasons were for the significant modeling changes on the Ferdwood pump station line between the 2007 and 2009 plans. Number 2, positively identify whether or not the 2009 plan was ever adopted. Number 3, if the 2009 plan was not, in fact, actually adopted, identify and resolve the legal and technical issues that this raises. Lastly, I would just request feedback on these 3 items as they are pursued. Thank you for your consideration on this issue.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Seppi? Thank you for bringing that to our attention. We appreciate it very much. And I will invite Mr. Roger Grahn to come forward. It's on. No, it was on. Would you please, button on the right. There, now, thank you.
There.
It's on.
Good evening. I'm here to talk about affordable housing
Would you
again.
identify yourself? We're recording this, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Roger Braun,
Thank you.
Yamhill, Oregon. I'm here to talk about affordable housing again. Only this time I have a prepared statement so I don't stammer and stutter and forget to say half the things I meant to say.
Okay.
What I've handed in or handed out to you is a preliminary estimate of cost of a real-time proposal. And as you may or can see later on now or whatever, is this a 60-unit proposal, 5 12-plexes. We're over on Winooski, the Lewis Academy site, and we've built these before. They're back-to-back side by side and 3 high, so you get a lot of bang for the buck with these things. And as you can also see, it's going to cost $500,000 more to build this thing than it's worth. Last time I was here, I talked about values and income generating your value. This thing is $500,000 more than it's worth. The majority of these costs, I can't do very much about. Concrete, lumber, asphalt, sheetrock, those are all national costs, national markets, and they're about the same nearly anywhere you go. The only realistic cuts or costs that can be altered to achieve any significant savings are the last 2 items. It's my money and your money. The permission to build, essentially what permits are, just permission to build costs, are more than 1/7 of the total value of this project. Speaks to the absurdity of trying to do this sort of thing and why no one, me or anybody else, will build these things. For one thing, no bank in this universe is going to look at a project that has these kinds of numbers. I'd be laughed out back onto the street. Unless you put in a huge capital investment additional to what you need to put in to begin with. Besides that, they're going to say to me some rude remark about how I've taken complete leave of whatever little sense I have or have left. Last time I suggested a way to remedy this problem. But that's just one way. There's others. Now, what I'm saying to you guys is that this is not my problem or my industry's problem. This is your problem. If you want affordable housing, then do something about it. We don't care what you do, just do something. I know that you think you need the money. I know that. But to continue the way you are, you have to quit talking about, you either have to quit talking about affordable housing or do something about it, one or the other. If you continue on this course, you should expect to be accused of being disingenuous at least about the intentions and the motives and the policies of this city. You can't have your cake and eat it too. It's as simple as that. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Braun? Comments? Councilor Essen?
Yes, sir. I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see.
I'm not very bright, so you'll have to tell me what it is.
Well, I'm just a carpenter. I mean,
So I don't understand some of these things. What are you saying that we can do? Lower some costs here? Is that what you're looking for us to do?
if you look at those costs, the permits and fees and so on are estimated at this point at $1.1 million for a $7 million project. Okay? And what the proposal I had last week was simply to cut that down to a 70% percentage and then allow it to be paid over a period of time rather than all in one front. Because the way it is today, to get this thing going, you have to pay the 1.1 million at the time the permit is issued. And what I'm saying is, suggesting is that under this proposal, and there's 4 cities in California that do this, there's different varieties of ways of doing it, but under this, you would discount the thing because it's affordable. You have to define affordable housing to begin with. And then if you're going to do that, part of it would be paid at the permit issuance, part of it would be paid at the occupancy issuance, and the balance paid out of operating income over a period of time. That makes it affordable, for me at least. I mean, I can build this if you guys would do, if there were something like that available, I would do this. But the way it is now, there's no chance.
So you're, follow on. So you're proposing that we reduce it to 7%? Is that what your proposal is?
I'm sorry, but I can't hear you.
I don't seem to be getting any kind of noise out of this thing. There we go. Are you proposing 7%, be reduced to 7%? Is that what I heard you say?
No, sir. I was calculate the fees and then cut that to 70%, take 30% off. You cut it to 30% discount out for affordable housing. And then that balance would be spread over a period of time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Roger. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, sir.
That concludes our public comment period. We now move to the consent calendar. Pleasure of the council. Councilor Corey?
And Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent calendar.
Been moved and seconded to adopt the consent calendar. Is there any further discussion? I hear no further discussion. Has the question been called for? Question's been called for. All in favor of adopting the consent calendar, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. None appearing. Consent calendar is adopted 6-0-1. One absent. With that, we move to new business. And this is a resolution 2017-3365, a resolution reducing or waiving or denying a reduction in the permit fees for the building division plan review, structural, state surcharge and technical fees, community development fee, city hall facility fee for a foundation permit for the Hoover Minthorn House Museum at 115 South River Street. This is not it's not a public hearing. So, Mr. Rux?
Thank you, Mayor. Doug Rux, Community Development Director. So as the mayor indicated, what you have before you is a proposal based on a request from the Hoover Minthorn House Museum to either reduce or waive fees related to a foundation permit. They are working to put a new foundation underneath the structure. You have in your packet an attachment which outlines the museum's proposal to do that, you all have attachment number 2, which is kind of a matrix which breaks down the fees. The fees have already been paid. As your report notes, that was done because they have some timelines to get the contractor on board, be able to get the work done. The report also identifies that they've received some grants in the total of about $80,000 from different organizations in order to do this particular work. When we brought forward to you other proposals, as we've noted, is that council has the authority. There are no criteria related to a reduction or a waiver in the fees. But your report identifies that there are 2 instances or situations where the council has done some reduction in fees. So one of those was related back to the cultural center, where there was actually the council made some direction to use economic development funds to pay for building and planning fees as part of that phase 1 project. And the second one was the CPRD pool, which came before you a couple months ago, where you did a reduction in the fees back to the 2015 fee schedule, so there were still fees that were paid. In the financial impact section of your report, we've identified, again, the total, so it was $1,754.89 that was paid for the fees. The state surcharge is not a fee that the council can reduce or waive. So that fee is $61.65, and that gets passed on. We're basically a pass-through agency to pass that on to the State Building Codes Division. I provided some examples of what the percentage of the revenue from this permit to the various funds. They are small percentages. Don't want to get into the details, but we're talking about things at 0.35, 0.2% of budgeted funds. But it is important to note, and we brought this up in another request that came to you, is that there was a technology fee that was implemented back on July 1st to pay for the new permit software, the integrated permit software dealing with various departments. And so we have a $294,860 contract. So each permit that's issued, there's a 5% surcharge that goes onto that particular fee in order for the different departments and divisions in order to pay their proportional share. In the report, I also identified kind of basically 3 options for you. So that first option is a version of a resolution that would be approving a waiver of the permit fees. The second option is one it's denying a reduction or a waiver in the permit fees. And then the third option is doing a reduction of some form in the permit fees. And I've identified there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of slice that or look at it to determine if there might be a particular reduction. So you're not seeing a specific proposal from staff. It's also in your report, though, that city manager did talk with Sarah Monroe about this, and we've identified that, at least from city manager's perspective, this was not one that we were looking to support. There are possible other funds or other programs that are out there that might be able to help reduce their cost. Thank you.
Questions or comments for Mr. Rux? Councilor Corey, city manager?
TLT, is there any way that any of these fees, because it is a tourism related, in my opinion anyway, it's tourism related definitely 100%. Is there any way that the TLT could cover these fees?
Well, the small grant request proposal that went out and was reviewed by the TLT committee and came before the council was focused on the marketing side. There is discussions about the large grant program. In that large grant program, as it's being discussed, it's going to be revisited by that committee on some criteria, is that the minimum grant amount for a large grant would be $10,001. So $1,700 is less than that. I might defer to the city attorney because there are statutory definitions, and tour-related facility is one of those. And it may, city attorney and I haven't talked about this, would a foundation qualify as a tourism-related facility for improvement? Hoover Minthorn House Museum did receive a small grant award of $1,400 for some signs, 2 signs that they want to put at the gates coming into the facility.
City manager?
Mayor and council, Joe Hannon again. Part of this is that we do not want to stand in between someone that wants to come to you asking for money. And so that's part of what you see tonight, that if somebody comes and says, can I ask for a waiver? And we say, yes. Put it in writing and turn it in. There are, and then also in the staff report, you see there that my recommendation is not to fund this. It's an outstanding facility in town. It is a tourism related and brings people here. The large grant program makes sense, not for this dollar amount. And we'll continue to reach out to them and say, let's talk about what your long-term capital plan. For example, on that site, they're looking at maybe reconstructing one part of if you've been to the Minthorn, you see where their outside areas, talks about the kitchen. That's the kind of appropriate thing that could come back to the lodging committee. There's also the Yamhill County Cultural Coalition. They didn't receive grants from our area, from Newberg last year, and we have people on the committee. So I encourage Ms. Moreau, apply for that, as it is to things like the Edwards Foundation, which is then a local foundation that is tied to George. It has roots in George Fox, to the founder there. Those are the places that we send them. So we don't send them away, but our recommendation is we have a very public process and detailed about detailing where the money that comes in for public improvements does streets, does water, does sewer. And there's a danger of, as you know that, of picking little ones and then not seeing the big picture. So we support the project. My recommendation to you is just not deferring or forgiving the fees in this case.
Councilor McKinney, Councilor Edson. I have to keep it straight in my mind, and Truman, you can help me if it's not straight in my mind. When we talk about things qualifying for TLT, it involves an overnight visit, does it not? That's one of the first identifying factors that this project qualifies for TLT. If it involves an overnight visit, is that a fair assumption, or is that just one of the assumptions?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Truman Stone, City Attorney. Councilor McKinney, there's a number of definitions in the state statutes relating to tourism lodging taxes, but the definition of tourist is a person who travels more than 50 miles from their home to engage in a tourist-related activity, or comes less than 50 miles but combines it with an overnight stay. So that's part of the definition of tourist and tourism. What Mr. Rux was talking about was a definition for tourist-related facilities, tourism-related facility actually, which means either a conference center, convention center, or visitor information center, and other improved real property that has a useful life of 10 or more years and has a substantial purpose of supporting tourism or accommodating tourist activities. So a museum, I think, would qualify under that definition because it would be real property and it would be something that would have a substantial purpose of supporting tourism or accommodating tourist activities.
Councilor Edson?
It seems like we're getting a lot of requests for this kind of, or getting more all the time. Under Roger Grant's request, he's got a formula that will help it work. Apparently a 30% reduction, somehow it all gets paid back in the end. So I think what we're coming up against is people that are trying to do things in our community, but they'd like some assistance. So I would think I would need to have some sort of policy that would apply to everything so that we don't come up with this sort of request and not have something thought out as to how we handle it. And of course, we can just deny it or whatever, but it sounds like some of the things we'd like to have done will get done if we work with the people to get it done. But I think we really need a policy and something thought out that says we want to do it or don't. So it's kind of tough to just every time make it an exception or give somebody a discount when it's not really provided for in our policies. So I'm not sure what to do about it, but I'm thinking that's my suggestion. We need to do something about that at some point.
I was wrestling with this earlier in the day, and I fundamentally concur with the recommendation of the city manager with this proviso. We have already demonstrated, and you have that on page 2 of the background material on this, where we have used our Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund as for a small grant in the past, and we used that with the Cultural Center, seeing the value of that as it pertains to the cultural values, not necessarily looking at tourism, but just simply the cultural values. And I'm going to suggest, as an alternative, that no, we do not waive, we deny the request for waiving these fees. However, I would suggest that the council take under consideration a grant of $1,000 from the EDRLF fund for this. We have, right now, we have over $200,000 in that revolving loan fund, and that has unsolicited this year. And there will be recommendations on what to do with it next year. And I'm suggesting that we do a $1,000 grant from that revolving loan fund, and then the museum would have to bear the balance of $754.89. And so I throw that out. In fact, I would even consider that as a compound motion that we deny waiving any fees, but that we look to the EDRLF and extend a $1,000 grant.
Second. Is that your motion?
That was a motion, and I heard a second over there. So, discussion now. I just threw that out. I think there's merit in it, but I need to know that's the mayor's motion. It's been seconded, so weigh in on it. Council, Councilor Johnson.
Mr. Rux, if I may,
You may.
Thank you. Can you explain a little bit to me about the EDRLF program and how that money's used? I'm sorry, I didn't do my homework before that. I didn't realize this was going to come up. So, this motion. I know. Here we go.
The Doug Rux again. So there was some funds that were left over from a community development block grant that was provided, the city was able to keep. It basically ended up as the seed money for the Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund. There's gone through a series of iterations on that fund, and I'm trying to remember, was it 2008, I think it was, is that there was a set of guidelines on how to loan this fund out money. And so it was focused on commercial industrial development, and then also a focus on commercial development in the downtown area. The fund basically has an interest rate on the loan portion of it of a minimum of 6%. And so in today's marketplace, that's higher than what the market is kind of dealing with right now. So in this particular fiscal, and so it's been accessed in the past. The two current entities who have accessed those loan funds are Newberg Bakery and Ruddick Wood. So those were loans that were approved by council. Bonaventura was another one that got a loan. That they ended up paying their loan off. I'm not sure about others, but I know that there's a history of some other loans that have occurred in that fund. So generally what happens is that all businesses that operate within the city, either being located here or you do business here, is required to pay a business license fee. By direction of this council, those revenues go into Fund 14 for economic development purposes. But in the past, the city council that has been sitting at the time has looked at that fund and they've authorized some property acquisition with it. As noted in your report, you did that for basically to backfill building and planning fees for the cultural center. So there's some latitude that goes with that, but it needs to be done by council resolution. The mayor is correct. This current fiscal year, we budgeted an expenditure of $200,000 for potential loans from that program. We have not had anybody approach us about doing that. So I estimated, I think this year we spent $50,000 of that. We may not. But then we were looking next year potentially at budgeting about $350,000 in that particular program. And one of we have on our work items, I've talked with the city manager, is to go back and look at that document, those guidelines, and look at how it might need to be retooled to today's economy. Something that's several years old is not working. So we need to find a way to be able to push this money out, loan it out in order to encourage businesses to expand and grow within the city. So that's generically what it is.
Perfect. I have a follow-on.
Follow on.
And in the Economic Development Master Plan, tourism is included in there as one of the pillars, correct?
In the Economic Development Plan, tourism and hospitality is the fourth pillar. Yes.
Thank you.
Councilor McKinney? Councilor Corey?
Go ahead, Mr. Corey.
Well, I was just going to say, it's kind of a follow-on to the discussion. I think that's a good option to use those funds as a grant, or in this particular case, and deny the request, but use the $1,000 grant. And partially because there's $200,000 sitting there that is not being used, and probably it's because of the interest rate that it's not being used, I expect. I think there might be requests if the interest rate was lower, but I think that's a very good motion, and I want to support that.
Councilor McKinney?
I would like to support the motion as well, because it doesn't preclude Hoover Minthorn House from continuing to achieve their goal by the solicitation of other parties to be able to help bring this to pass. So if there's no further discussion, I'm prepared to call for the question.
I saw two lights down here. Councilor Estes?
Yes, thank you. I wonder, just to add, I'm obviously in support since I'm a second, but at some point, since we have this as a loan that's available, and the interest rate is 3% higher than what you can get, or maybe even 4%, we should revisit that interest rate, because that's probably why we're not getting any. We have it for a reason, obviously we want people to use it, but if our rates are out beyond what the market is, we're not going to get uses of it. But I'm happy that we have the money so that we can do some good things like I suggest that the mayor has proposed.
I believe the staff has indicated they're acknowledging that. Your light?
Oh, am I still there?
Councilor Johnson?
Call for the
The
question.
question's been called for. Do you understand the motion? Deny the request for the waiver, but extend a grant of $1,000. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. None appearing. That motion carries. We have council business. Anything else you need? Doug? Okay. We have some council business here. I have a couple of items. There's a town hall meeting being scheduled in McMinnville this Thursday. Senator Boquist and House Representative Ron Noble will be conducting that. That'll be at the Mack Civic Center at about 6 p.m. this Thursday, April 6th. We have a whole week of activity beginning tomorrow, is that correct? With our Camellia Festival?
Those start Thursday.
Well, we have people coming in tomorrow. The American Camellia Society is starting their national convention, will be arriving tomorrow. There may be even guests coming in from London, England, that are involved in the World's Camellia Society. We have, and we'll post it if you have not already received it. There should be a schedule of events that will involve our council activities. There is a reception on Thursday evening at Anamcara, I believe from 6 to 8, is that correct? Is it 6 to 8, city manager, I believe? 5:30, oh, well, I got that one wrong. Anyway, and then we have activities in the noon hour on Friday out at the golf course. And of course, we will be greeting the Council General, Japanese Council General, around noon on Saturday at the festival. And there is the walk and run in the morning that we encourage all of you to attend. So I would hope you attend those. And just as a heads up, the bypass has a quiet meeting going on. We have been invited, members of the Parkway Committee have been invited to meet with certain staff members from ODOT to discuss some ideas that they have about trying to move forward in the next phase of activity, whatever that is. I do not know any details, but that's coming up in the very near future. And that's all I have right now for updates at this time. Anything else come before the council at this time?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I see Professor Mock brought out a class tonight, and although I think we've lost most of them, maybe you could just introduce your class.
We had 10 members here from the, I think 11 from the state and local government class.
From the which?
State and local government class.
Thank you.
This is one of 2 meetings, the local meetings that we attend.
Very good. Thank you. We appreciate it. Let those that did exit early, thank them for being here. We appreciate it. Anything else to come before the council? None appearing, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
That's a good motion. We are adjourned.